Welcome to the Gabrielle Lara Show, a podcast created for the new and aspiring entrepreneur who's navigating the messy middle part of their entrepreneurial journey. I'm your host, Gabrielle. I'm a niche expert and a sales coach who helps coaches like you find your niche and sell in a way that's authentic to you so that you can have a thriving business. I'll be inviting entrepreneurs from all walks of life onto these episodes to share their story of how they went from an aspiring entrepreneur to a CEO and all the messy parts they navigated in between so that you do not feel alone on this journey. Sit back, relax, and stay a while because you are more than welcome here. Welcome back to another episode of the Gabrielle Lara Show. Today, I have Sid with me, who is an entrepreneur who's going to walk us through her story so that we can hear all about her messy middle and how she went from where she was to where she is now and everything that she navigated in between. So if that is a story that you are interested in hearing, then you are in the right place. So you guys know, if you've been listening for some time, I don't typically introduce my guests. I like to pass it off to them and really introduce themselves. So Sid, hello, welcome.
Hi, thanks for having me. Intro of myself. I feel like this is a hard one because I have
Yeah, like
so
just dive into your story. Like dive into the
yeah,
whole thing.
it's a big story. So it started about 2016. I was really unhappy in my job. I just graduated and thought I was like, okay, I'm gonna do the whole 9 to 5 thing, but I want it to be a startup and I want it to be in Denver. So I moved, got a job right after graduating from Ohio State, moved out to Denver and worked for kind of like a tech startup. And it was great in the fact that it introduced me to a lot of friends since I knew no one in Denver. But quickly realized that the 9 to 5 was just not for me. I was like really not understanding that if I only had to really answer 2 emails that day, why I had to sit there until 5 p.m. Or like if I had gotten everything done, it just didn't make sense to me. And then also related to like, I was pretty much a sole person on the largest account for the company because my boss had been promoted and didn't have time to cover it. And so I was on the account, there was like $11 million in the year that had come in, and I was making like nothing. So I was also like, this doesn't make sense either that like what I'm producing should then reflect my paycheck. So the entrepreneurship life started sounding a lot more appealing for where I wanted to go. And also, everyone in my family is either an entrepreneur or a real estate agent. So, in that, kind of still an entrepreneur. So I was used to that lifestyle of like seeing that's how my parents lived versus, a strict schedule in a 9 to 5. And I also looked at it when I was thinking about like my path forward. And I was like, so you're telling me that I can work my ass off for another 10 years and in this specific sector of the company, pretty much only make $80,000. And like, not that like it's not all about the numbers, but like, I'm like, if I'm going to work my ass off for 10 years, I want to do it for myself and have like be able to have unlimited earning potential. So that was kind of where I was at. And at the time, I was helping a friend out with a company that was called Axe and Hammer. And it was essentially like large scale museum grade art prints. So I was getting photographers on board. And then we were also building out a site in Squarespace, and we switched it over to Shopify. So I was obviously learning like some of the ins and outs of web design, branding. And I had been working in Photoshop since I was like 12 because I was always interested in photography. So I like knew Adobe, and I was working in Photoshop as well in my 9 to 5. And I kept looking at the designers and being like, I think that's what more so what I want to do, but I have no idea how to get there and I don't want to go back to school for it. And so I kind of just got to this point where my intuition was just screaming at me that I could not stay in this 9 to 5. Like I was so unhappy. And I've had this conversation with several friends where like your body will let you know when like something's not aligned and it's not right. And it will keep getting louder and louder until you listen. So finally in September of 2017, I listened. And someone also told me this quote that I feel like is a great one. A little more vulgar, but it's like I can't find like another analogy for it that like says it
We
as
love
well.
a vulgar quote. Let's hear it.
It's literally just shit or get off the pot. Like someone was like, you've been talking about this for like 8 months. Like you either have to, yeah, do it and rip the band-aid, or like accept that you're gonna stay at this 9 to 5. And so I was like, let's do it. And so I quit and literally started babysitting to make money, because also at this point in my career, like I said, I was not making a lot at that 9 to 5. So I literally made just as much babysitting. And so I did that, but it like babysitting provided me so much more mental space than a 9 to 5 did. So I was able to make money. And honestly, it was the first time in my life I like didn't really have responsibilities. So I was kind of just enjoying being a kid in a way, and had a really fun ski season out here and just kind of, you know, let myself like not be in this huge rush to do what's next. But it was always in my mind. So I quit in April or in September. And then I was like, okay, by April, I'm solely going to be making money from design. And so the game plan was kind of to try and build up the photography business more. And then also on the side, help people with Squarespace websites and branding, since I had gotten into that side of it through building Axe and Hammer. And so I started the web design stuff, and that just really took off a lot more quickly than Axe and Hammer did. So I talked with my partner Stanley, and he actually also started doing web design as well. So now we both do web design, and Axe and Hammer is no longer. So there's a lot of like failures on the way, but like I feel like it led me to exactly where I wanted to be. And so yeah, I've been doing web and brand design full time since 2018 of April. And then in that journey, I went through such a huge personal development journey, which I feel like every entrepreneur can relate to that. And so I really started to dive into mindset around 2019, and then really started to step into the money side of it in early 2020, because I realized that mindset like was so helpful, but what I was experiencing like the most anxiety around was money. And because I would have these really amazing months in business, and then I would have like a $2,000 month the next month. So it was just so inconsistent and frustrating, and it felt like as soon as I paid things off from the good month, like things just accrued the next month. And so I feel like money mindset specifically is something that people like don't ever want to look at or like talk about because it's more taboo. But it really, I feel like, is so integrated into your worthiness, what you're going to charge people, how you view things. Like I was sending out invoices and being like, oh my God, I hope they're not mad at me. Like if someone does amazing work for you, why would you be mad at them? So yeah, it was in 2020 that I really dove into the money mindset piece. And that's when I found consistent income in my business. And that's when I scaled to 10K months pretty consistently in my web design business. So then in 2021, I was like, I'm going to help other people do this too, because I struggled for like 3-ish years to figure this out of like how to actually enjoy my business, how to like make decisions intuitively in it that lead to a lot of income and a lot of amazing clients. And so in 2021, I launched a group program called Elevate into Prosperity that was so amazing. And I had, I think 5 people in total go through it, and everyone saw like just these crazy results. Like one girl in a 9 to 5 doubled her, or not doubled, but she got a salary increase like out of the blue. Like it was not expected at all. Several of the entrepreneurs who went through it did double their income. They went from like, one girl was considering going into retail again because she was just struggling so much. And then after the program, or in the first month of us working together in the program, she hit $8,000 in her business and like has consistently done very well since then. Another girl like had this goal of like getting to $14,000. She'd had several $10,000 months, but it just felt like such a block. Like she wasn't worthy of anything more than that. And she hit $14,000 in the first month in the program. So just really cool, awesome results. And then I did a couple other like smaller immersions and intensives last year. And yeah, that's kind of the whole picture. So I still do brand and web design. And then I also helping other people who are mostly in the service-based business sector see success in the way that I was able to see it.
That is so beautiful, Sid. And I love and I just want to highlight what you just said in the way that I was able to see it. Like, that's what mentorship does. Like, that's what this online self education industry that's booming right now is. You took something that worked for you, that you saw that was once a huge hurdle, and you got to the other side with, you saw prosperity, you saw abundance, you saw it all in a way that felt really nourishing for you. So you shared that gift and that framework and whatever helped you, and you opened another division of your company.
Yeah.
That is so badass. I love that. That's freaking beautiful, Sid.
Thank you. Yeah, it's been a journey, but it's definitely been so rewarding in so many ways.
Wow. And that's just something truly to celebrate. And I hope every single one of you listening, because I know a lot of you listening are aspiring and new entrepreneurs, really like re-listen to that and like soak in that story, because you didn't sit there and be like, oh, how am I going to do this? You just took action. You figured it out. And each step of your journey brought you one step closer to where you are now. Seeing
Mhm.
that consistency, seeing that abundance, making that impact in two different divisions of your business.
Yeah, and I think it's so important too to just like yeah, the whole just start thing, because obviously when I was like 23 leaving that 9 to 5, I had no idea
Oh my
where I
gosh.
was gonna go. Like I thought if you would have asked me then, I would have been like, yeah, I'm gonna be running Axe and Hammer and it's gonna be so great in 5 years from now.
Yeah. So I wanted to add, I'm glad that you just said that, because I was going to ask if you were comfortable sharing what age you did quit your job, because it was 23, right?
Yeah.
And it's so funny because, and I want to highlight that because I speak to a lot of women in their 20s. I'm 28, I'm in my later 20s, and some in their younger 20s. And I have people in my circle who are in their younger 20s where they're like, and I just looked at the recording time, it said 11:11. That is
Ah,
bizarre.
it's also
Um,
222, right?
yes, it's such a good day today. We're recording on February 22nd. But anyways, they're like, I'm 23, 24, 25. Like, I'm supposed to be like getting married and figuring it all out. And I'm like, hold your freaking horses, sister. Pipe
Yeah.
down, slow down. And so I really want to highlight that you are 23, right? Where a lot of pressure, society puts so much pressure on the young 20s, being like, all right, well, you've graduated college, the fun's over, figure it out, work that 9 to 5. In my case, making 30 grand a year when I was working my 9 to 5 as a receptionist. And like you said, you were slinging a client and nurturing a client for $11 million, and they'll pay you freaking pennies. Like,
Yeah.
and you just knew, like, no, I'm worth so much more than this, because it's like, yeah, it's not about the money, but like at that point it is. It's like a self respect thing. It's like, sorry.
Well, yeah, what is it they say? Like, you either have to be like growing a lot, making a lot, or like have so much passion around it to like kind of justify. And I had like none of those. So I was
Right. Yeah. Like 0 for 3 on all of those. Hard pass. I hear you. I totally get that. And like, it's, yeah, that's a whole other conversation of how like corrupt and how much bullshit that is. But we'll save that for another
well,
chat.
yeah, I'll just say this: like, you will get a lot of pressure if you're like at the time, I didn't know any other really like entrepreneurs
Of
other than like
course.
my parents, and like they did it in a completely different way than like entrepreneurship happens now. So
Right.
it was definitely like, I like you have to go through this growth period where I definitely lost a lot of friends who I thought were really close from that company, but it realized it was just like more of a convenience friendship. Because as soon as I left and was doing something different, it was like all this pressure and like you will go through these growth spurts of like who you're even close with, and that can seem really scary. But like I
Mhm.
will tell you, I have like the best friends now who are like
Oh, I
so
love
much
that.
more aligned and like soul connected than like, those back then. And also like I remember the time going to my boss and being like, this can't be it. Like there has to be more. And she was like, pretty much like, this is about as good as it gets. Like,
Oh my
you know,
God. Barf. Red flag.
yeah.
Yeah.
She was like, you can just have your passions on the side, but like you work at like a fun company. You should just enjoy it. And it was just like, ah.
It's so funny. I used to work at a startup too, and it's like the close knit family.
Mhm.
Yeah, yeah, and they make it sound like it's God's gift to Earth, and it's like
Yeah.
no.
Yeah. Yeah, I will
It's
tell you the grass is definitely greener on the other side. You will have to go through, like I said, a lot of personal development and a lot of things, but like I regardless of like what my career is, I feel like that has helped me so much just as a
Absolutely.
so.
Absolutely. It's like all of this stuff, like those steps are so necessary to get you where you are now. Are they enjoyable to go through? No. But would you be where you are now without that? It's hard to say, right? Maybe not. And, even looking back on my path is semi similar to that, like the startup and all that. I needed to experience that. Like you needed to experience to kind of get where you are now, experience that discomfort, experience your intuition pulling you so much that like you felt it in your body. And like I love how you said your body will let you know if you're unaligned. Like if you just keep going down the rabbit hole and your intuition's knocking at the door and you're going to go just like run and hide under the covers, they're still knocking and you're ignoring it, like your back's gonna go out or like something. Like
Yeah.
it's regardless of how young you are, you're pulling some sort of muscle that's gonna suck. And
Yeah.
it's being told that like, hey, stop ignoring us. Like you've walked this walk. We learned the lessons that we had to learn. We have the information that we were meant to get during this experience. It's time to move on. So
Mhm.
what physical signs did you experience and how did you really correlate that with being out of alignment?
I mean, this was also back like way before I even knew like what alignment was.
Of course, it always is, right?
Yeah, I was just like, I mean, I've always, I feel like, had like some sort of like tie to my intuition even before I became like a lot more woo. But it was just like the physical anxiety. Like anytime you have just like I feel like the consistent like feeling in your chest is just like this tightness or just like this like almost like it feels like you're not free.
Right,
um, that just like was what I was consistently feeling, and just like the feeling of like every single morning being like, ugh, I have to do this again. Like
right,
that's not how life should feel. And like just think of like how much time you're putting towards someone else's dream, and like wouldn't you rather, and like I mean there's a right way for everyone to do it. Obviously, I did it in a very unconventional way of just being like, I'm just gonna go do something like babysitting to like figure this transition out because I just knew I couldn't do it anymore. But like you just I feel like you get to this breaking point where it's just like the anxiety, and like it's also like my intuition specifically. I know everyone like has like a different dynamic, different relationship of how they receive like downloads, but for me mine is a lot of like this thought that just like keeps getting louder and louder until I listen to it. And so it was just like over and over again, like this is it, you have to like make a change, you have to do this, like and I had this quote on my wall at the time from Warren Miller, who's like this huge ski film guy. And the quote was like, if you don't do it this year, you'll be 1 year older when you do. And I was
ooh,
just,
ooh, that's a good one.
it was a
Damn.
great quote. And I remember looking at that every morning when I was like heading to this 9 to 5, being like, do I want to be like 25 doing this? Like starting over?
Yep.
So
Oh my
yeah.
gosh. So what fear did you experience? Like what fear held you back from not making that decision sooner?
I feel like honestly at the time, the biggest fear was like, well, yeah, like my dad said it well when I was talking to him about doing this. He was like, so what happens? You're 23 and like you fail, quote unquote, at like entrepreneurship, and then you have a lot of great skills that you can apply to another 9 to 5. So I feel like fear honestly wasn't a huge thing then, because I was like, my like bills and everything are so small at that
Mhm.
age.
Yeah.
um,
Oh yeah.
and like I didn't have anything that was like really like a huge risk, since I secured a babysitting job like that would at least cover rent and things like that
Yeah.
before I left my 9 to 5. So like wasn't really scared about money and like things like that. I think fear more so set in like as you get into the entrepreneurship journey, because you're just so much more hyper aware of it. Like when you're in a 9 to 5, I feel like yeah, like maybe you could think about leaving and there's some fear associated with it, but like I don't know, I didn't really have like a direct relationship with fear, and like it wasn't in my face. Versus like when you're an entrepreneur, I feel like because you're the sole one you're relying on, it becomes a lot more. loud because you are essentially challenging all these things with your ego of like safety. You're challenging like the societal norm that like you're gonna be paid by someone else, and like it's gonna be a steady income and steady paycheck, versus obviously when you're really in the entrepreneurship thing, it's like your ego is freaking out like, oh my god, can I secure the same like safety for myself? So I feel like fear is definitely a huge topic that I talk about with clients, and it's come up a lot later, or like I feel like once I was like fully immersed in the entrepreneurship thing, but I was so young and so like had so few like I guess things that felt like risks. I don't know at the time, like looking back, I feel like there was probably like fear around what my friends would think, fear around like if I was going to be like considered like a failure by them for doing something different. But the conversation I've had over and over again with like friends and clients is like, yeah, let's say like you do something, you take the risk, and like maybe short term, there's like people could look at you and like question, which 90% of the time they aren't even thinking that. That's just like in our own heads. Um, but like, so what if people think that for the short term when like in the long term, if you're betting on your success and you believe in yourself and you know that it's going to happen, they're going to look to you and be like, holy shit, I'm so jealous.
Right.
Like, this is her lifestyle. She gets to work for herself, create her own schedule, and make way more than like what was
Yeah.
possible in that 9 to 5 anyway. So like you really have to evaluate the long term when you're considering that like risk factor.
Absolutely. And isn't it crazy how much weight we put into other people's opinions of our decisions that affect our lives and no one else's?
Yeah.
It's so wild. And it's like, and it's so normal. We all do it. We all do it until you really step back. And hopefully, as you're listening to this story, and hopefully it's dawned on you where it's like, wow, like we put so much weight in other people's opinions that it stops us, where when in actuality, it's us who's living our life, right? Like
Yeah.
at the end of the day, we're going to be on our deathbed looking back and saying, do we have any regrets? The people who you were worried about may not even be there anymore, like but it's so normal and it's so natural, and it's something that society is just ingrained in our brains. But the more that we can just shake that need for external validation and just really turn inward to that intuition, right? Like your intuition that was just banging down your door there saying like, Sid, listen, come on, it's time to go. Your highest self was just trying to take you along. And, those limiting beliefs and the societal pressures, they just really, really take a toll there. I think it's so interesting.
Yeah, and I kind of dove into it like from an evolutionary standpoint to more so understand why we are so, and it makes sense because like back in the day, like you needed that specific community that was physically around you, right?
Yeah.
Like it was like in order to survive, you needed your that like group of people, whether like I
Right.
guess tribe back in the day. So like
Mhm.
now it's not like you can connect with people online and virtually and have the support network that's not necessarily like physically around you. And then like also you can meet new people physically around you who are amazing and who are more aligned. But it was like I think we get, especially when I was in my young 20s, I didn't really understand that like friendships change, and like just because you're friends with someone right now doesn't mean you have to be friends with them for the rest of your life. And so I was so tied to like this one group of friends being like needing their approval. And then it got to this breaking point where I was just like, why am I trying to impress these people? Like, I don't even feel like I'm supported by them in any way. So why am I trying
Yeah.
so hard? And it's kind of funny now because like one of them that I was like trying so hard to like make sure that like he approved of this decision and what I was doing, and that he didn't view me as a failure. Like now he went off on his own like 4 years later and is doing his own thing. So it's like
Yeah.
it's
Just
also
like
interesting how it changes.
it really is. And like keep those blinders on. Like it's so important. Like I remember somebody telling me like your 20s and like in particular your early 20s, it's like those are your selfish years. Like don't hesitate. And it doesn't mean go be a bad person and be arrogant, but like
Yeah.
say no. Say no, thank you. Like don't hesitate to do that. And like just focus on scaling yourself, right? Everyone's so into scale your business, scale your freaking self and your business is gonna follow. Scale
Yeah.
your mindset. That's what I care about. So kind of moving into that, like I really want to dive deep into the money mindset. And it's so interesting because like, and I think and I'm curious your thoughts on this, but like regardless of what stage you're at in your business, like you deal with money mindset. I did a hypnotherapy session this morning, like 2 hours ago, where we were diving deep into like this core memory from childhood that was just sticking with me. And I could feel that resistance in my business. And it's like, regardless of where you're at, like it's gonna come in and it's gonna come back. And it may not take one session to heal. You may have to just really, really knock down that door to heal it. But I'm so curious about your journey with money mindset and what prompted it.
Yeah, so like I said, I feel like Denver is like definitely more of like a progressive city. So like I was like leaning into mindset just like based on who I was connecting with and becoming friends with at the time, and like diving deeper into understanding like the relationship with myself. But I felt like, yeah, money mindset was like this piece I never wanted to actually look at because I was like, I don't want to just, it just makes me feel closed off and I just don't, I'd rather not know. And then one of the people that I had become friends with, I think shared something from Amanda Francis. And she was really my first introduction into like what even is like money mindset. And so I did one of her small bundles. I think it's called Energy and Frequency of Money. And it was the first time I also saw someone who I feel like I had this picture like to be successful, you have to like be type A and you have to like from like all the limiting beliefs I had from my childhood of my grandpa always being like, I've never known someone successful who didn't wake up at 5 a.m. They're like those kind of like stories. And she was the first person I saw who was like, I wake up at 10 a.m. Like I'm not a perfectionist. Like she literally has typos in her like courses and things like that and still makes a shit ton of money and is still really successful. And I think it was the first person I saw who was like, you can truly be yourself and own that to like have a business that makes you really good money. And so I started diving into her work and it was just like so groundbreaking for me to look at all these stories. Like we all have stories that we have heard for years. Like you were saying, like a childhood wound, like is still playing out in how you act today. And like that happens to everyone unless we like take a look at it and heal it and move past it. And yeah, the healing process it's not always linear. It's like,
It's a
um,
journey.
yeah,
It is a
yeah,
journey. It is
different
not linear.
no, it is not, because you can think you're past it and then, like, you start dating someone and they bring up new stuff, like or, like, you get in a different dynamic in your business and that brings up new stuff. So there's no, like, end point because I feel like then that would just be so boring if you were just, like, perfect and healed.
I
Um,
love that you said that. I love that, and not to interrupt here, but I just love that you said that because it's like it doesn't end. It's not like you do a few hypnotherapy sessions, oh, you're done, like you're good to go. Like it's an ongoing thing because like sure you heal that, and like I always say, a new level in your business, a new devil. Same
mhm,
thing with your life, right? You're single, you get into a relationship, things could come up. You get engaged, you get married, things could come up. You have a baby, like if you choose to. Like there's just so many things that like these triggers from your childhood that you didn't realize wounded you as a
mhm,
child, now in adulthood, if you do not explore those, just like how your intuition was knocking down your door, these are gonna, like, the universe is just gonna keep throwing it in front of you until you learn the lesson. And I
mhm,
had to learn that the hard way. I'm sure you had to learn that the hard way in areas. And it's like the more we normalize that and like talk about that, I feel like the less alone people feel as they navigated it. Cause like I remember going through, I'm like, am I the only one? Like, I felt so alone. And like entrepreneurship in itself can really feel alone, but
mhm.
man, that's a freaking whirlwind. So I really just want to highlight that.
Yeah, because I think there's like this picture of like, oh, you do this one program or you do this one thing and like you'll be healed forever. And it's just like, that's
Right.
never the case. Like, it's going to give you the tools to address the resistance in a way that's like
Yeah.
going to be a lot easier to work through stuff, or it'll like improve your life in a lot of ways. But like, no one can hand you like a magic pill that will just make you walk on rainbows and butterflies forever.
100%. Like everyone who's like, here, I made $500,000 overnight. Buy this strategy. You'll do the same thing. Horseshit.
Yeah.
Red flag. No, you won't.
Run
Because
away.
right. Here's the thing, like they may have healed the wounds that they needed to heal to get to that abundance in their life, which is beautiful. We can all get to that abundance. Your journey is going to look different, your journey is going to look different, and your journey is going to look different. Honor that. Like we all run from our uniqueness so much, but like that is the very thing that's going to get you the abundance that you're looking for. It's not buying somebody else's. It's not what worked for them to get to work for me. Take it from somebody who bought all of those at the
Yeah.
start of her business. I always say I didn't make money for 6 months at the start of my business. I was just laid off my job, and it was because of that. I was looking at everyone else and I was ignoring what I brought to the table. And it's like, if I could just shout that from the rooftops and save somebody a couple $100 from doing that, like I did, it's crazy.
Yeah. And it's like there is definitely like obviously like there's containers and things that can drastically help you, but
Absolutely.
like it's also like you have to go into it knowing that like you are the solution. Like yes, they can give you
Right.
tools, but it's going to come from you, and like they are not like your key to success. You are. They can
Mhm.
help you like point you to the like wounds you need to heal, the things you need to they can help you believe in yourself. They can help you like see a new reality, see a new shift. But like at the end of the day, it all is you. Like you're the one who has to do the work. You're the one who has to face those stories. Like no coach can like be in your mind and be like they're 24/7 to help you work through stuff. And like that's the relationships that or the like coaching containers that I've seen the most successful from actually haven't even been one-on-one. So like it comes down
That's
to
so
like
interesting.
you being the one who wants to make the shift and the change and like taking the guidance, yes, but not looking to anyone as like your savior almost.
Right, like not looking at anyone. I don't want to say for the answers, because of course, like mentorship is so important. I will always invest in my business. I will always have a mentor in my business. But it's a matter of like taking that responsibility and saying like, yes, they can help me get where I want to go. They're living the life that I want to live. They can help me do that, but I have to clear the weeds, my own weeds first to get there.
Mhm.
They'll sand the path. It's you knocking down the weeds, because if you don't knock down those weeds, it's impossible, and it's hard. It is really really hard. So hopefully something you've been able to take from this chat is to like clear those weeds, like set yourself free, and then in Sid's case, like as you clear those, maybe you can add that to another division of your company. I think that's so awesome that you run more of like an agency side and a mentorship side.
Yeah, and it was something like it definitely took me until like this January to like come to terms with like I can do both. Cuz it was in my first year, I feel like getting really into the coaching industry, I feel like there like obviously love so many components of the coaching industry, but there are also some things I feel like if you're just only looking at that, you're like, "Oh my god, I can do anything. I can manifest anything. Of course, I can make like $500,000 in the next week. Like, what's wrong with me if I can't?" And so I think I like really dove into this mentality of like, it has to be one or the other. And so I was like, literally doing no marketing for my web design business, but it was like 90% of my income last year. Um,
Yeah.
and at one point I was like, I just want to like be done with it. I just want to go into coaching. Um, and it really wasn't like because intuitively that's what I wanted to do. It was because I felt this pressure. Like I'm not a successful coach if I can't scale it to like the same level that my web design business is at, like immediately. And so that pressure, like I last August, I was like, okay, I'm done with web design. And it put like such a negative like force field almost around coaching of like it made it like this like do or die type scenario and like just so forced around like how I had to go about it, like what metrics I had to reach to, in my mind, be like successful at it, and was just like judging myself so much more harshly than like anyone else. And so I feel like I learned so much also in starting the other side of the business, just in like so much stuff like we talked about that came up that I thought I had healed that I had not, and like pressure, imposter syndrome, and things like that that I had healed as a web and brand designer. Like I was feeling confident and amazing at that, but as a coach, it was like a whole new like immersion into a
Oh
new
yeah.
growth scenario. And so, yeah, after like, I feel like just struggling in different ways mentally with like the whole coaching thing, I was like, you know what? I don't need to make it one or the other. Like, it can be both. And actually, most of my clients, like I said, are for coaching are service based entrepreneurs. So, in like feedback that I've gotten from them, they like really, they chose me because I had a successful service-based business. So it was like, why am I almost shooting myself in the foot then and saying like, I have to be solely a coach to be a good coach. When actually like being a successful web designer like allows me to give so much more to the coaching container. And like, we'll see this year how it evolves, but I'm like taking the pressure off. And I had this post where I was like, I'm done with the or policy. I'm going with the and policy of like,
Absolutely.
I can be an amazing brand and web designer, and that makes me a better coach, not like or. So,
Oh my
yeah.
gosh, I love that because they teach that so much in therapy too. Like, it's why can't it be both? Like, yeah,
Yeah.
I love my parents and XYZ hat. Like, they give so many examples of just like saying and. Like, yeah, I love my job. I love being an entrepreneur and I'm tired, right? It's like we say or but, and it just throws us off so much. But when you add that like and perspective, I love that you highlighted that because it's like it's that perspective shift that helps so much. So one question that I want to ask you, so two questions left that I want to ask you. So one, what is one thing that you wish you could go back and tell yourself at the start of your business?
Start working on your mindset now.
Yeah, right? Like,
Like
don't run from it.
I feel like I ran from it for so long. And like, I mean, I was like taking steps because like entrepreneurship showed me that I had to, because I would go down these like negative self-critical like spirals when like not even someone, it wasn't even negative feedback. It was like, hey, can we shift one thing? Like, I love it. But like, and I would like be like, oh my God, I'm terrible. Do all my clients hate me? And like, it just became very apparent that I needed to work on the headspace stuff. So I did start like kind of working on it like within my first year, but I just wish that I would have, I guess, followed or like seen more, gotten myself in places where I was seeing more examples of entrepreneurs and like hearing more of their stories, because I really didn't even like, I didn't even start a business Instagram until like 2 years in. And like, I feel like in that I found so many other people where I was like, wow, this doesn't have to be so lonely.
Yep,
um,
exactly. Yeah, exactly.
yeah. So I feel like, yeah, I guess work on your mindset from the start. Like that's probably like something you may not think you need to, but it's definitely going to make or break your success. Because if you don't believe in yourself, then it's not going to work. And
Absolutely.
then I think also, yeah, just like the piece of like develop that community as soon as you can. Start engaging with people online. And just like immerse yourself around other people who are going through it, because otherwise it can feel so isolating when like no one in your personal network is in that entrepreneurship journey like you are. But there's so many resources and so many people who are exactly where you are, so you don't have to feel alone.
100%. Like, you don't, and I'd also say too, like, just to kind of add on to that, like, you don't have to do it by yourself either. Like, this isn't
Yeah.
meant for you to just do on your own. Like, there's
Yeah.
people out there. Like, find your people, find your network, find your mentors, and immerse yourself in that. Like, just like find
Mhm.
your people. So, last question is, where can people find you? Where can they follow you? How can they work with you? I'm going to put everything in the show notes, but if you want to kind of tell people there so that they can go follow you.
Yeah, so you can follow me on Instagram at Mindset with Sid, and then my website is also just mindsetwithsid.com. Um, and if you want to check out the web design portion of it, it's Olive Wing Designs, which is based on the olive wing butterfly, which is the only thing in nature that actually produces blue pigment.
Oh,
Everything else is just a reflection of light. So
I love
thought that
that.
was cute for a unique name. But on the coaching side of things, I offer intensives. I'm actually about to launch a bundle for those. So those are great, where it's just like a 90-minute deep dive into clearing the blocks, working through stuff. And people have seen like such incredible results just from the 90 minutes, where they hop off and have like 2 leads in their inbox, or they hop off and like we work on boundary setting and they get rid of a toxic client, and then literally within the week got a 5K new client that was like their dream one. So like a lot of really cool stuff can happen in there, and you also get Voxer support with those. And then I will be relaunching Elevate into Prosperity, my group program, probably in April. So if you're looking for more of like a deep dive, like start to finish, on not only like like what main, like the core thing is like money mindset, but what it really is just like self-worth, confidence, like self-love, and all these things that then add up to get you into a better place with money, where it really is like a like supportive relationship instead of a toxic one that you don't want to look at like I used to be.
Absolutely, 100%. Oh my
Yeah.
gosh. Well, thank you so much. I'm going to put those details in the show notes, everyone. So follow Sid, check out our programs, check out her website, and thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. This is awesome.
Did you enjoy today's episode? If so, I would be super appreciative if you left a review and a rating and shared this with a friend so that I can continue to bring you value every single week. I'll see you next time.